Love, I once believed, was unshakable. It was something built on trust, strengthened by time, and made unbreakable through shared experiences. I had that once, or at least I thought I did. My wife, Sarah, was the kind of woman men wrote poetry about. She was radiant, full of life, the kind of person who could walk into a room and command attention without saying a word. When she laughed, it felt like the world itself paused to listen. I was devoted to her. We had been married for 6 years, and in that time, I never once questioned our commitment to each other. Sure, life had gotten busier, responsibilities had piled up, and intimacy had dwindled slightly, but that was normal, right? Love wasn't always fireworks. It was quiet, constant, something that endured even through the mundane moments. Or at least, that's what I told myself. It all started on an ordinary Friday night. I had come home later than usual, drained from back-to-back meetings. The moment I stepped inside, I felt something was off. The air smelled different, not like the familiar scent of Sarah's lavender candles, but something new, something foreign. I shrugged it off, thinking maybe she had changed brands. Sarah was on the couch, phone in hand, her lips slightly parted in concentration. She hadn't noticed me at first, which was odd. Normally, she greeted me the second I walked through the door. I took a few steps forward before she finally looked up, her expression unreadable. "You're home late," she said flatly, locking her screen and slipping her phone into her lap. "Yeah," I sighed, dropping my briefcase near the door. "Long day. How was yours?" "Fine," she said, her eyes darting back to her phone. That was it. No smile, no warmth, just fine. I frowned, walking over and pressing a kiss against her forehead. She let me, but there was a stiffness in her posture, as if she was tolerating it rather than enjoying it. Something about that gnawed at me, but I pushed it aside. Maybe she was just tired. "Want to order in?" I offered. "I'm starving." She hesitated, then shook her head. "I already ate." Again, strange. Sarah usually waited for me. We had a routine, and she was big on routines. But I let it slide, brushing it off as a one-time thing. We spent the rest of the night in silence, her eyes glued to her phone while I scrolled mindlessly through the TV channels. The following days, the distance grew. She was distracted, always texting someone, always stepping out of the room when she took calls. And at night, God, the nights felt colder. We used to fall asleep, wrapped around each other, her legs tangled with mine. Now, she turned away, barely acknowledging my presence. I told myself I was overthinking things. Maybe work was stressing her out. Maybe she just needed space. But then came the moment that changed everything. The text message. I hadn't meant to see it. I wasn't the kind of guy who snooped through his wife's phone. But that night, as she got up from the couch to grab a glass of water, her phone lit up. And there it was. A message from someone named Daniel. "Can't stop thinking about last night. You feel incredible. When can I see you again?" My blood turned to ice. Sarah walked back in, oblivious to the fact that her world was about to shatter. I sat there, phone in my hands, my heart hammering in my chest. She froze the moment she saw me holding it. "What the hell is this?" I asked, my voice shaking. She didn't even try to deny it. Didn't scramble for an excuse. Instead, her face twisted into something I couldn't quite recognize, something cold, almost resentful. "I was going to tell you," she said quietly, crossing her arms. I scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping my lip. "Oh really? When? After he fucked you again?" Her eyes darkened, but she didn't deny that either. My stomach clenched, nausea rolling through me. This wasn't some misunderstanding. It wasn't an emotional affair, some long-winded excuse about needing connection. It was physical. She had given herself to another man, someone who wasn't me. My hands curled into fists, knuckles turning white. "How long?" 3 months, she admitted. 3 months. 90 days. Over 100 texts, calls, stolen moments, and I had been oblivious to all of it. Why? My voice cracked. She exhaled slowly, rubbing her temples like I was the one giving her a headache. I don't know, okay? It just happened. It just happened. Like an accident. Like an unintended mistake. But people didn't just trip and fall into beds they weren't supposed to be in. Do you love him? Silence. The answer was clear. Even if she didn't say it out loud, the hesitation spoke louder than any words ever could. I got up. I needed space, air, something to stop the suffocating weight pressing against my chest. Where are you going? She asked, suddenly alarmed. I grabbed my coat, shaking my head. I don't know. Somewhere that isn't here. And then I walked out the door, leaving behind the home I had once thought was unbreakable. But nothing was unbreakable. Not love, not loyalty. Not even me. I drove for hours, the city lights blurring into streaks of color as my mind raced. The betrayal burned through me, a wildfire of rage and sorrow intertwining until I couldn't tell which feeling was stronger. Sarah had been my world, my constant, my everything. And now, she was nothing more than a stranger wearing the face of the woman I loved. The weight of it pressed down on me, suffocating, unbearable. I needed an escape, something, anything, to dull the ache in my chest. That's how I found myself at a bar on the outskirts of town, a place I had never been before, surrounded by people who didn't know my name. It was dimly lit, the air thick with the scent of alcohol and perfume. A live band played in the corner, their music drowned out by the hum of conversation. I slid onto a stool, signaling the bartender. Whiskey. Neat. The glass was in front of me within seconds, amber liquid glinting under the low light. I took a sip, the burn sliding down my throat, grounding me in a way nothing else could. Rough night, a voice to my right asked. I turned, my gaze meeting a pair of striking green eyes. The woman beside me was effortlessly beautiful, long, dark hair cascading over her shoulders, a teasing smirk playing on her lips. She was the kind of woman who turned heads without even trying, exuding confidence in a way that made it impossible to look away. You could say that, I muttered, downing another sip. She tilted her head, studying me. Let me guess. Girl trouble. I huffed out a bitter laugh. Something like that. She leaned in slightly, her scent, something floral, intoxicating, wrapping around me. Then you're in the right place. Best way to get over someone is to forget them for a while. I shouldn't have entertained it. I knew that. But in that moment, with my heart in pieces and my pride shattered, I wanted nothing more than to lose myself in something, someone else. What's your name? I asked. Elena, she purred, running a finger along the rim of her glass. And you? I hesitated. For the first time in years, I wanted to be someone else, someone untouched by betrayal. But lying felt pointless. Ethan. Well, Ethan, she murmured, leaning in closer. You look like a man who could use a distraction. My pulse quickened. The air between us crackled with something dangerous, something I should have resisted. But Sarah's face flashed in my mind, her indifference, her lies, her body given to another man, and suddenly, I didn't care about right or wrong. I wanted revenge. I wanted to feel something other than this unbearable pain. Elena smirked, as if she could read my thoughts. Let's get out of here. I hesitated for half a second before nodding. The drive to her place was a blur, tension simmering between us. The moment we stepped inside, she grabbed me by the collar, pulling me into a kiss so fierce, so consuming, that my thoughts vanished entirely. Her hands roamed, nails scraping against my skin, igniting something raw and primal inside me. Clothes hit the floor, bodies tangled, heat building until I couldn't think, couldn't breathe, couldn't feel anything but her. It was reckless. It was wrong. But in that moment, with Elena's body pressed against mine, I didn't care. For the first time since Sarah's betrayal, I felt alive. Morning light filtered through the curtains, casting a golden glow across the unfamiliar room. My head throbbed, a dull ache pulsing behind my temples, but that was nothing compared to the storm raging inside me. Elena's bare body was curled beside me, her slow, steady breaths the only sound in the quiet space. My skin still burned where her nails had raked down my back, my lips raw from the way she had kissed me, hungry, desperate, as if I was the only thing that existed in that moment. But now, in the unforgiving light of day, reality crashed down like a collapsing building. The weight of what I had done settled deep in my chest, suffocating. I had spent the night with a stranger, drowned my pain in lust, allowed my anger to guide me into something reckless. And yet, I didn't regret it. I should have. I wanted to. But instead, all I felt was a strange, twisted satisfaction. Sliding out of bed carefully, I reached for my jeans, pulling them on before grabbing my shirt off the floor. Elena stirred, stretching lazily before blinking up at me with a sleepy smirk. "Leaving so soon?" she murmured, voice thick with sleep. I hesitated, running a hand through my hair. I need to clear my head." She propped herself up on one elbow, green eyes studying me. "You don't have to explain anything to me, Ethan." A slow, knowing smile curled her lips. "But if you ever need another distraction, you know where to find me." My stomach twisted at the invitation. I should have walked out without another word. Should have left the temptation behind before it turned into something I couldn't control. But instead, I found myself nodding. "Take care, Elena." With that, I grabbed my keys and left. The cold morning air hit me like a slap as I stepped outside. My car sat parked along the curb, a stark reminder that I was still the same man who had driven here last night, only now I carried the weight of another betrayal on my shoulders. Because that's what this was, wasn't it? Cheating. I had become the very thing I despised. But wasn't it justified? Sarah had destroyed me. She had thrown away our vows, our years together, for someone else. If she could give herself to another man without remorse, why should I feel guilty for doing the same? I clenched my jaw, gripping the steering wheel as I drove aimlessly, my thoughts an uncontrollable spiral. I didn't know where I was going until I found myself pulling into my driveway, heart hammering. Home. The house we had built together stood unchanged, as if nothing had happened, as if the foundation wasn't crumbling beneath us. I stepped inside, the familiar scent wrapping around me like a ghost of the past. Sarah was in the kitchen, coffee mug in hand, wearing one of my old college sweatshirts. The sight of her standing there, so effortlessly normal, made something in me snap. She turned at the sound of the door, her expression unreadable. "You didn't come home last night." The words hung between us, heavy with unspoken accusations. "Neither did you," I shot back. Her lips pressed into a thin line. "Ethan, we need to talk." I let out a bitter laugh. "Now you want to talk?" I stepped closer, watching the way her fingers tightened around the mug. "Where was this urgency before, Sarah? Before you let another man touch you?" A flicker of something crossed her face. Regret? Guilt? I didn't care. "I made a mistake," she said finally, voice softer. I scoffed. "A mistake?" My hands curled into fists at my sides. "Sarah, you didn't just trip and fall into bed with him. You chose this. For 3 goddamn months." Her jaw tightened, and for a moment, it looked like she wanted to argue. But then, her shoulders slumped. "I know. And I don't expect you to forgive me." I swallowed hard, my chest aching. "Then what do you want?" Silence stretched between us. "I don't know," she admitted finally. I don't want to lose you." Something inside me twisted violently. I should have walked away. I should have told her that she already had lost me, that there was no going back from this. But then I thought about last night. About Elena's body beneath mine. About the way her moans had drowned out every painful thought, even if just for a little while. And suddenly, I wasn't so sure who the villain really was. I stared at Sarah, my mind a battlefield of conflicting emotions. The woman I had loved for years, the one I had built a life with, was standing before me, asking for something she had no right to. She didn't want to lose me? She had already thrown me away. "You don't get to say that," I muttered, running a hand through my hair. She set the coffee mug down on the counter, her fingers trembling. "Ethan, I know I messed up, but please, can we just—" "No." My voice was sharper than I intended, but I didn't care. You don't get to rewrite what happened. You don't get to stand here and act like this is something we can fix. Tears welled in her eyes, but I wasn't sure if they were real. Did she regret what she did? Or did she just regret getting caught? I still love you, she whispered. Something inside me twisted, but I forced myself to stay cold. Love? I let out a bitter laugh. You don't love me, Sarah. You loved the comfort, the stability, the security I gave you. But when you wanted something exciting, something new, you threw all of that away. Her face crumpled. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? I demanded, stepping closer. Explain it to me, Sarah. Make it make sense. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. That's what I thought. I exhaled, my hands tightening into fists. You chose to cheat. For 3 months you chose him over me. And now that you've been caught, you suddenly want to fix things. She wiped at her eyes. I do want to fix things. I'll do whatever it takes. I scoffed. Whatever it takes. You think that's enough? You think saying sorry erases everything? She flinched at my words, and for a split second I almost felt guilty. But then I remembered the countless nights I had spent thinking she was working late, the morning she had kissed me goodbye while carrying another man's scent. No. She didn't deserve my guilt. She didn't deserve me. I turned away, my mind already made up. I'm done, Sarah. Panic flashed in her eyes. Wait, what do you mean? I grabbed my keys from the counter, heart hammering in my chest. I mean I'm done with this. With us. Tears spilled down her cheeks, her voice cracking. Please, Ethan. Just give me one more chance. I paused at the doorway, my grip tightening on the doorknob. Last night I had drowned myself in Elena to forget, to numb the pain, to feel something other than betrayal. And for a brief moment it had worked. But now, standing here in the wreckage of my marriage, I realized something. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to hurt Sarah the way she had hurt me. I just needed to let go. Without another word, I walked out the door, leaving her behind.